video is sponsored by MPB.
Welcome to very sunny Iceland. I thought it would be a good video to make about the OM system OM-3 for landscapes and long lenses, like this one that I have on it right now. I've done a lot of street photography and travel photography with my OM-3, but you know, it has a stacked sensor, it has burst modes, it has all that good stuff like weather sealing and ruggedness that'll make it perfect for something like a trip to Iceland. And I know a lot of people have concerns about how the OM-3 feels balanced or not with longer lenses, so I thought I would put it to the test and give you my thoughts and feelings.
I love photographing birds in flight, particularly puffins. I've had quite a bit of experience of that now. I love it because they are creatures of habit and you get to learn a lot about their behaviours as well as test your skill. And my goodness, when you are tracking birds in flight, of course the camera makes a big difference, but there is a lot of skill involved for the photographer as well. You've got to hedge your bets. So the idea is it's coming at you and you want to track it until it's big enough that you can get a good photo of it. So if you're shooting it around the 100mm mark on the lens, then yes, you'll be able to track it really, really easily, but by the time it gets in front of you, it's still going to be quite small in frame. So then that's an easier shot that you're more likely to get. If you want to play on hard mode, you can slowly zoom in as the bird gets closer and closer. And then when it is in front of you, bang, it suddenly fills the frame. But you get split seconds to get that right. And it's so exhilarating and so much fun. And I could honestly do it all blooming day. And I did a bit.
It was like they were just flying around and around and around. And my goodness, the camera could keep up. It's one of the trickiest things that you could get a camera to do. The OM-3 locked on absolutely fine, exactly how the OM-1 Mark II did when I was in the Faroe Islands. It's impressed me greatly. And bearing in mind this is with a Lumix lens as well, so the subject detection, the burst modes, everything works and is cross-compatible. One thing I've noticed so far, because I'm using a Lumix lens on an OM system body, is of course the stabilization doesn't communicate. And it's much more jittery in the eyepiece than when I was using the OM system 100 to 400 a few months back. So just keep that in mind if you are cross-brand lenses and camera bodying. In terms of settings for the puffins and the burst modes, I've been using the Pro Capture SH2 mode, which keeps continuous autofocus throughout, and I've customized it to have 10 frames when you half press the shutter, and then it'll continue indefinitely until it runs out of buffer once you press the shutter, so you can follow it along the sky and you've got loads and loads of photos to use through. I've capped it at 25 frames a second. I do have a Pro lens with me which will do up to 50 frames a second, but I honestly just think that's overkill. I'd rather have 25 frames a second and have a longer buffer and have more of a chance to get the shot that I want.
The second component of this landscapes and long lenses is of course landscapes. I had my f4 stock lens with me, but I also quite enjoyed just wandering around with the 17mm f1.8 prime. This made the OM-3 nice and portable and really comfortable on my little leather strap, and I got some really nice photos, if I do say so myself.
I think using this as a leading line towards the cave might also be a good composition, so let's give that a go.
Now, an often overlooked part of landscape photography, or an overlooked choice of landscape photography, is opting to use longer lenses. People might think about landscape and immediately go to like wide angle lenses, and sometimes that can work, but sometimes the interesting stuff just ends up like a tiny little dot on the horizon because the focal length is so wide. If you try a longer lens, I had the 40 to 150 f2.8 for these images, you can really add some compression into the shots and get some very interesting results. This sequence in particular, where I could see the bridge and then the snowy mountains in the background and then there was just people everywhere, I thought it worked really, really well, and you would just never have got the same effect with a standard focal length. These were also on a longer lens as well, and honestly, I could have paid these birds as models because they just seemed to be in the right place at the right time for every single image. It was so, so good. I did this volcano walk with my OM-3, and most of the time I had my 17mm on. It was really, really easy to carry. And the red volcanic rock on the floor, juxtaposed against the more green, summery landscape around it, just really made for some interesting compositions. And I stayed up there for blooming ages, getting some really good photos.
She was a fairy.
We headed to another black volcanic beach one of the days, intending to get some dramatic waves and some landscape shots that were quite moody. I had some black and white in mind. I'm on a black and white kick at the moment. But what happened when we got there was we actually got bonus puffins. We had some puffins on the cliff, so I just sat down on the beach with my long lens and my OM-3 and had a good old time. This was more traditional, what I would consider traditional puffin photography, if there is such a thing, where you target one and you wait. And then they flap the wings or start cleaning and you're like, are they going to go? And then they go, no, I'm not going to go. And then 5 minutes later they go and you can follow them out to sea. So that way you get some perched shots, some takeoff shots, and then in flight. And that is very much like picking a winner. You find one that looks fidgety and you hold your spot. Half pressure shutter in the pro capture mode so that as soon as that moves, you know that you've got the shot. And yeah, it was a lot of waiting in a relative stress position. Now, I draw your eye to this because I'd intended to go out and shoot landscapes, so I didn't have the additional grip on my OM-3. This was just a normal, bog standard, naked OM-3 with a really long blooming lens on it. I didn't even really notice. It was not any more or less uncomfortable. The grip does make it easier, of course, but it's not something like, oh, I need to go back to the car and get the grip, this is unusable. It was absolutely fine. One thing that did catch me by surprise, however, which I haven't really considered before until doing it in the real world, is the cup. The plastic eye cup is hard plastic. And that's fine if you're taking your camera to your eye, taking a shot and putting it down. But if you're holding it for, a good couple of minutes, like you do in wildlife photography, the OM-1 and the OM-1 Mark II cup, and the G9 too actually, they have like a rubber eye cup and it's way more comfortable against your eye for that period of time. So it wasn't really the ergonomics of the camera that caught me by surprise, it was how weird the eyepiece was when you are hunting for the shot. As is the theme whenever I talk about the OM-3, if you dabble, these things are livable and absolutely fine. For me, it's fine. I was on a trip for 10 days and I did 3 sessions of puffin photography and the rest of the time I was doing other things. Absolutely fine. If I was going to Kenya again on safari, for example, I would really want that rubber eyepiece over the plastic one. So I would probably take my OM-1 instead. But it all depends on what you shoot and how regularly you shoot it. I have 3 main accessories for my OM system OM-3. I have the cute little leather pouch, which I brought with me on this trip because I stupidly assumed that it might get cold, but it didn't. And I thought having a leather cover on my camera would make the metal camera easier to hold, but it didn't matter too much. But I just think it's a gorgeous accessory to have anyway. The second accessory is, of course, my super lightweight grip, which I think is a very well designed piece of kit. It has the cute little Allen key thing attached magnetically to the bottom, and it really does weigh nothing. And then the third thing I have is this little leather strap, which I got as a freebie as an early adopter. I think that offer's now ended, but these straps are gorgeous anyway. And then one more thing that I do with my cameras sometimes is I use the Peak Design camera bag clip. So using these different accessories at different times, the grip if I want a longer lens, I've got the clip if I need 2 cameras for any scenario, like if I'm going into a waterfall, I ain't changing lenses, so I need 2 cameras. It's a very handy way to carry my cameras around. If you are thinking about buying the OM System OM-3 or perhaps the new OM System OM-5 Mark II, plenty of options these days in Micro Four Thirds, it's all very exciting, you should definitely check out the sponsor of today's video, MPB. MPB are the world's largest online platform for buying, selling and trading your camera equipment. So maybe you want to have a shuffle around and save up for something new. Here's a quick rundown of what happens when you sell with MPB. You put in the make and model number of whatever it is you want to sell, and then the condition, and then you get a quote straight away and you don't have to speak to people. If you're happy with the quote, then you can accept it and then you can send off your stuff to MPB, which is free of charge. Then their experts will look over all of your equipment and then you will get the money in your bank. It's as simple as that. Whatever your photography goals, I'm sure MPB could help you out, so check them out in the description. I have links for UK, US and EU. If you do use those links, it does show MPB that I'm doing a good job, and that makes me very, very happy. And let's get back to the nerdiness. My original video title for the very first video I did on the OM-3 was, "This is the do everything camera that I've been waiting for." A couple of months later now, and a lot of photography later, I really do stand by that. I think I've thrown everything that I want to do at this camera, and it has excelled and impressed me every single time. I think the only thing that I dabble in that I've not done yet with the OM-3 is astrophotography, but you know, give me autumn and I'll see how we get on with that. Otherwise, everything it's excelled at. I think the OM-3 is kind of like my ideal camera in the sense that it is metal and gorgeous and stylish and timeless, but it also has the internals of a very sophisticated photography camera. One thing, you know, like I've had the G9 II since launch and I love that camera dearly, but I very seldom take it out and about because it's just big and chunky and, you know, it's a bit uggo, innit? It's a bit ugly. But the OM-3 seems to be like, really illogically, like if I'd made a perfect camera, give me something that looks pretty but also performs really well. It is definitely style and function. I don't think the style gets in the way of the function, as hopefully this video will demonstrate. And shout out to my dad, and I just want to make the point that my dad is rocking a G85, a Lumix G85, and he's had it for a number of years, and he always gets really good photos with it. He took it to the Faroe Islands the times that we've been, and here in Iceland it's done brilliantly as well. You don't have to have the latest and the greatest, and if you're watching this and maybe you want an OM-3 or an OM-1 or whatever, don't feel like you have to in order to get good photographs. It's more about getting out there and getting experiences, I think. These photos and some video clips from the G85 have been absolutely wonderful. So think of these new shiny cameras as a bonus. You know, if this is your main hobby and you've got budget, go wild. You will absolutely love the OM-3. But if it's out of your budget or it's just not something that you want to spend money on, don't feel like you're going to be inadequate as a photographer, because cameras have been good for a very, very, very long time. Okay, I just wanted to say that. I've been utilising that photo profile dial in this holiday, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yes, I have the high contrast monochrome with the red filter so that the blue stuff in the image goes a little bit darker. Chef's kiss. I love some of these moody monochrome shots, particularly on the black sand beaches. It's like a match made in heaven. And being able to just one dial and we're in monochrome, back to standard, wonderful, intuitive and fast. On the OM-3, we get all the way up to live ND 64, so that can give you a good second on a moody day of handheld long exposure. And I went to town using this feature on both of the cameras that I had with me. I just think it's so handy to use. This one in particular, this was our very last full day. We went into this waterfall and behind this waterfall and got absolutely soaked. And it was wonderful. It was so much fun and so exhilarating. And then we went to the second waterfall at that location, where you literally had to like wade up to your knees to get into this cavern. And I was just like, do you know what? I'm not going to get good photos in there. It's packed full of people and there's going to be so much spray that it's just not going to be worth it. So instead, the queue of people were going into the cavern and I put the camera up over their heads and shot off some live ND. Handheld, it took me seconds. You know, if you didn't have that in your camera, you would have had to have lobbed up a tripod and stuck a filter on and it just would never have worked in a million years. On the OM system cameras, I can lift it up, done. The spray doesn't have time to get onto the lens, and I've got these really moody, long exposures into the cave, and I think they're very, very cool. So the OM system OM-3 has continued to impress me again and again, and particularly, you probably hear it in my voice in this video, like how happy I am with the puffin shots.
Oh my god, suddenly there is activity. The birds are going round and round and round, and if I do say so myself, I got very, very good at tracking them mid-flight and following them around. I think I got some really good shots, actually. I got some bangers, but more than that, the cameraman, I just left it in bird tracking and all, so the camera was deciding exactly where to focus throughout. And look at how well it tracked some of these. I've never seen a camera system as good as this for tracking birds in flight. It is insane. And a reminder for the 800th time, I'm shooting with a Leica Lumix lens as well, so it's not even like I'm shooting with a Pro OM lens. This is as worse as it could possibly be in theory, and it's still getting just an amazing hit rate. Sorry, I'm quite giddy. Nothing is more fun. I could do that for hours and hours and hours. It was so good.
So I hope if you're thinking about getting the OM System OM-3, these videos have been helpful. If you'd like me to cover anything else in future videos about this camera or anything else, let me know in the comments. Watch my other Iceland videos next and subscribe. I'm getting a little bit closer to 100,000 subscribers, guys. It might actually happen this year. So yeah, if you're not yet subscribed, help a gal out. And thank you so much for watching.